Welcome back. Well, today marks the 18th commemoration of World Refugee Day. It's a day that's meant to acknowledge the courage, the strength, the determination of men, women and children forced to flee their homes and countries to avoid persecution, conflict and violence.
The Desmond Tutu Refugee Reception Center in Marabastad, a safe haven for scores of asylum seekers. Ernest Kiteram and his mother fled Burundi in 1993. They are among the 68.5 million people displaced as of the end of 2017.
We went to school here, we did our matrics here, we went to college here, but we faced problems with the Department of Home Affairs, especially when time to renew, because they said that basically it's free to renew the paper, but when we come here it's not free.
The day recognizes the contributions of refugees in their communities.
A lot of work needs to be done to educate South Africans around asylum seekers, around refugees, and the documents that they carry and the challenges that they face in South Africa, as well as the hardships that they've come and run away from. I think that's very important to educate South Africans on.
But the refugees aren't welcome by everyone.
When you go to Home Affairs, you pay for your ID, you pay for your passport, you don't get it free. So I want to know, because it's a concern to us if they will be coming here and say they want everything free from Home Affairs. We can't do that, and it cannot happen.
When you go inside to do application for passport is a very, very big problem. They don't allow the person to have a passport as a refugee.
The immigration who are arresting people, and they are the one who is giving them a paper. After they come here after 2 months and 3 months, they arrest them and they take them to Central Police Station, and they are asking for releasing money, 10,000, 2,000, 3,000. I want that thing to stop.
Many foreign nationals seeking refuge in South Africa say they daily face challenges such as corruption, harassment and arrests. Offenses Timo, SABC News, Marabastad, Pretoria.
Well, serious claims have been made against South Africa's government when it comes to the treatment of asylum seekers and refugees. When foreigners enter South Africa, they can apply for asylum or for ultimately refugee status, but there are claims that they return regularly to the refugee reception offices many kilometres away from their homes, sometimes turned away, or they sit in a situation where their permits are extended year after year, waiting for a final decision. Now, in an open letter to President Ramaphosa, lawyers for human rights say that asylum seekers are being treated poorly and the Department of Home Affairs is disregarding the laws of South Africa, the values of the Constitution and failing to comply with the UN and AU refugee conventions. To discuss, we're joined by the Director General of the Department of Home Affairs, Mkhuseli Apleni. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Apleni. Can we start at the beginning? So people arrive in this country through whatever means. They are entitled to apply for asylum. While that decision is being made, there's a limbo period. Apparently we have one of the biggest backlogs in the world there. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, firstly, I think we need to say as South Africa, we are the one amongst the countries which are receiving the highest number of the refugees.
How many per year at the moment?
Yeah, well, around about 2008-9, it was around about 200,000 which were receiving, but the number now is coming down to about 20,000 now per annum. Yes, but out of that, as South Africa, we've got about 88,000 people who have been recorded as the refugees which are receiving protection in South Africa. As today we're commemorating the Refugee Day, the refugees, not by us, they were standing there and thanking this government for protecting them. Then now what has been the problem now in South Africa is what we called a mixed migration inflows. That out of the number of people who come to South Africa, only 5% will meet the criteria of being refugees. The rest are economic migrants. So that's why now when people go to those refugee centers, when you talk to them, they will be putting as if they are asylum seekers who are the refugees, whereas they are economic migrants. Because
may I stop you there? Because Lawyers for Human Rights, okay, so we've gone through the chain, and now 96% are being rejected, or 95% are being rejected. Lawyers for Human Rights says this means there's no conflicts in Africa. Where are you actually accepting that people are in real fear of persecution, therefore they're refugees? Because we have Syria, we have South Sudan, DRC, Burundi. They're saying these countries have serious problems that South Africa is not recognizing.
But South Africa has got 54 countries. The number which you have mentioned is not even 20% of the countries in Africa. I think it is also not correct that we project Africa as this bad continent, that's why the AU is working hard in dealing with those issues. So what we are talking about is those countries. If now we are coming from Somalia, you are coming from Nigeria in the particular regions, let's take SADC as an example, because the highest number of our asylum seekers, 47% of them are from the SADC. So if you take SADC, I'm talking about Lesotho, I'm talking about Swaziland, I'm talking about Mozambique, I'm talking about Zimbabwe. And then in that region, that's what we're talking. Then we said, those people are economic migrants. How do I prove that? During the festive or the Easter, Beit Bridge alone, we're processing people back about 29,000 people per day. If in their country they are persecuted, as we think that is the case, why do they go back home? Because when you say I'm an asylum seeker, you are saying I'm no longer trusting the protection of my country.
So you think they voluntarily leave their home, come to South Africa?
For economic reasons. They come to South Africa.
And are we not sympathetic at all to those economic regions, to poverty, to starvation even in some situations?
Yes. But remember, the question is, that's why there are sovereign states. South Africa as a country has got 24% of unemployment. So if I've got a 24% of unemployment, South Africans come first. But what will come second is somebody who is persecuted in their own country. Then will take the responsibility for that. But the countries of the world never agreed to say, we will take people who are, there's a poverty in their countries, other country must be responsibility for them. So that's why we will look after the people who are seeking protection in our country.
Before that decision is made, so you believe that that's justified, that we're wiping out 95–96% of the claims. Lawyers for Human Rights saying it takes 10 to 15 years in some cases. Fatima Khan from UCT saying that government has ignored court orders to reopen refugee reception offices. So people have to travel long distances, sometimes to different provinces, just to keep applying for their documents. Another claim that government is giving appointment slips rather than renewing those asylum documents against court orders. Are we making it as difficult as possible for people to update their asylum documents and seek refugee status in this country?
Well, at the Department of Home Affairs, as you know, that for our own citizens, we were called Home Affairs because at that point we were a department which was using paper. Then we recognized that once we're in a paper environment, this where corruption will strive, and then the rate of efficiencies will be a problem. Then we move into the modernized. That's what we have done now with our refugee center starting at Desmond Tutu. When you go to Desmond Tutu, you don't get a sleep. You go into a mission, you do your renewal at your own, and you are able to do that. And when we're implementing that, we did say we will roll it out to other refugee centers. We have done now in the Western Cape Refugee Center. Now coming to this thing that we're ignoring the court order. Last week, I was in PE because for me to operate a refugee center, I need to have a property to run that. But to do that, I must get it from the Public Works. Public Works have got a property. I'm opening the refugee center now back in PE by October.
Okay, so that's in compliance with the court order.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. There's so many more claims. I wish we had more time. Thank you for being with us. The Director General of the Department of Home Affairs, Mkhuseli Apleni.